Today I'll be creating 2 monochromatic cards using artist markers. Stay tuned to find out how I create them. So this is the first card that we'll be creating. This is artist markers on vellum. It is absolutely beautiful and very easy to create. So let's just begin. I'll be using the Happy Petals outline stamp set and the coordinating die with it. I will prep my vellum using anti-static powder. Then I will stamp the image in embossing ink and pour over platinum embossing powder. Then I will heat set this. Now that the images are ready, I'm going to flip the vellum and color on the back side. As you can see, this is the front side and this is the back side. I'll just place a plain white paper beneath my vellum piece so that you can see the images clearly. I will be using the shades of purple artist alcohol markers to color behind the vellum. This is going to be a quick and easy process. For every bit that I color here, I will be using 2 shades of color. So 2 shades of markers for the leaves, 2 different shades for the flower, and 2 different for the other one, and so on. You don't necessarily have to do this. You can just use any 2 dark and mid-tone or a dark or a light marker. But I wanted to show variation among my bouquet of flowers. So once you flip it over. So some elements will appear light, some dark, and some of a different tone. For my leaves, I'm using the Midnight Violet, which is the darkest color. I want my leaves to be very dark, so I'm going to use the Midnight Violet and the Deep Iris on this one. Also, this is very easy, as I mentioned earlier. All you need to do is just try to stay within the lines, and that's it. For this flower, I'm using the Lavender Fields and Deep Iris. Deep Iris being the darker than the Lavender Fields, of course. And I am just going to apply a stroke of Deep Iris and then blend it using the Lavender Fields. So I'll be keeping this very light, and then the only part that's dark is going to be along inside edge that's closer to the flower center. I will color all the petals in the same way. If you want to add more depth, all you need to do is add more of the Deep Iris. You can make the stroke broader. You will notice that wherever there is a bit of an overlap, I will add a broader stroke. So now I am just going to flip over the image and show you how it looks. And I absolutely love the look of this. It is looking beautiful. Look at all that shading. And we have used only 2 markers. And this is vellum. You know how artist markers or alcohol markers in general work on vellum. But this looks beautiful. But if you do want to add more depth to this, you can definitely go ahead and add more of Deep Iris in the center over there, or maybe somewhere closer to the flower center, the base of the petals, that is. Compared to the flower, my leaves were not as dark as I liked them to be. So what I did is I just went back in and applied more of that Midnight Violet pigment. And you can see right away that it did make a lot of difference. For the ranunculus type of flower, the last one, I'm going to go for the darkest marker that we have, the Midnight Violet, and blend this out with the lightest marker that we have, that is Soft Lilac. So this will give us a pinky type of color. It's going to be a little bit of magenta. It's not going to be very purplish. So this is going to create a little bit of difference between the 2 flowers. Again, I'm going to color all the petals in the same way. Apply the dark pigment as a stroke and then blend it out with a light one. I'm not really worried about blending this because, as you have seen, we do need that dark stroke to show the depth. So I'm just going to quickly color this, and because I need more of that image, I will go ahead and color the other piece too, so that I can cut it out and place it strategically to form my border at the lower edge of my panel. On a light purple cardstock, I'm going to apply Lavender Fields Crisp Dye Ink starting from the lower edge, and I'm going to extend this on the right side a little bit more because my vines are a lot more on the right side than on the left. So this is just to add a little bit of depth, but this is going to be very light as compared to the second card that I will work on, because this is vellum and our flowers are very light. Here you will see me using double-sided adhesive sheet to adhere my vellum pieces. The double-sided adhesive sheet by Altenew is absolutely fantabulous in adhering any vellum pieces because it doesn't show through. What you can do is directly die cut using the coordinating die out of the double-sided adhesive sheet. I didn't do that because I didn't want my flowers to be stuck to the cardstock. So I just applied them in the center portion and along the edges. I didn't apply a lot of adhesive, but this was secure enough. I noticed that I needed a little bit more inking at the lower edge. So I'm using the Deep Iris Crisp Dye ink and I'm just going to apply a little bit on that edge that is going to be visible. And then I will extend it out a little bit more towards the side. Once I'm happy with the look, I am going to add splatters to this. And first, I'm going to be adding a lot of metallic splatters because this is a very pretty sparkly card with platinum embossing. So I will mix a bit of the sterling silver, the white pigment, with a bit of that purple pigment. I believe this is amethyst, and the one that is on the left, the plum kind of pigment. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name. I'm going to create my own custom metallic watercolor shade and then add splatters of that to the card panel. Next, I will also add very fine black paint splatters. The reason I'm adding black paint splatters is because first, I love them, and second is because of the sentiment that I'll be adding. And it does need a little bit of the boldness of black. Then I will dry the panel so that the splatters dry completely. Then I will remove the backing of my adhesive sheets that is behind the die cuts, and then I will adhere them onto the card front. If I do need more adhesive to secure some of the pieces or edges, I will add a tiny bit of pieces there. These are not going to be visible, so I can add any shape or any size I want to. Then I will cut off the excess overhanging die cuts. I'm not going to let these go to waste. I will use these to continue creating my vine. Again, I will be using this double-sided adhesive sheet to adhere the remaining pieces onto the panel. Once this is done, I am just going to stamp the sentiment in Obsidian ink, and that's it. The first card is complete. I just have to show you up close how beautiful this card looks. Look at how shimmery this card is. It is super sparkly, and the embossing, and on top of that, the metallic watercolor splatter looks absolutely beautiful. I will be adding a lot of bling to this because it is looking very pretty, and the bling is going to just enhance the look and the prettiness of the card. So on to the next project. I will use the Deep Iris Crisp Dye ink and stamp on the same colored cardstock. I'm using a stamp positioner to stamp the image because I will be stamping over this image again in embossing ink, embossing it with platinum embossing powder. So once I have colored the image, that's the next step that I will do. Again, for the coloring, I will be using the artist alcohol markers, and I will again use them in a way so that I have different colored florals or different tones of florals within the same 4 markers that I will be using. This is not very detailed coloring. I'm just going to be adding the same type of stroke that I added for the vellum coloring, and then I will blend it out. I will make sure that the stroke is visible, because when you add that platinum embossing powder, when you add heat embossing to an artist marker color image, you do need that depth there. That is what I have noticed in the past too, that I used to go back in to add darker detail. So what I do now is I keep that dark pigment very dark and I don't blend it out very much. You don't notice it at all later on, but that dark pigment does look good. It actually enhances the floral arrangement. So make sure you have that dark pigment on there. Even if it's not blended well, that is absolutely fine. It is going to look beautiful nonetheless. Once I'm done coloring the image, I am going to prep the panel with anti-static powder. You have to do this, otherwise your embossing powder is going to stick everywhere. I would also suggest just take your heat tool and go over the panel once so that you know that the ink is completely dry. Place the panel back in the stamp positioner, stamp with embossing ink, and then cover with platinum embossing powder. Heat set it. Then I will use the coordinating die to die cut it. So for the panel, I'm going to start applying ink from the bottom left portion towards the top right portion. And this is going to be an ombre inking. I will start by applying the lightest color, which is the lavender fields. I don't even need this, but this will help in seamless blending. Then I will add deep iris, and the last color to add is Midnight Violet. This is from the Shades of Purple family, but then I really needed that depth, and I thought instead of adding another purple color from some other family, I would use the Jet Black Pigment Ink and add a bit of it to the bottom left corner. It will add a little bit of depth and also add a little bit drama to the background. Once I'm happy with the inking, I will add the same splatters that I added for the first card. Once the splatters are dry, I will adhere the image onto the panel with foam tape. And then for the sentiment, I'm just going to stamp the sentiment onto the same color cardstock. Then I'm going to heat emboss this in crystal clear embossing powder, which I completely missed to add over here. And then I'm going to just draw an outline around the word believe so that I can fussy cut it out. Because I didn't like the plain cardstock, I added a little bit of inking at the bottom edge of the sentiment. I will pop this with foam tape, and then I will add another additional sentiment that will be heat embossed on black cardstock. And then I will add some shiny, shimmery pearls to this card, and again, this one looks as beautiful as the first one, maybe even a little bit more because of the depth that I have been able to achieve in this, especially by adding that black. Maybe I could have added a little bit more, but I do like how these cards turned out using the same supplies, more or less, just changing the cardstock and vellum. It changed the whole look. One is a more dramatic card and one is a soft looking elegant card. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.